conversation you have is so boring? Do you find yourself drifting off in between the conversations? Or do you struggle to focus on the person you're speaking to? It doesn't mean that you're boring, but it could mean that you are using some common conversation killers. Like we have conversation fillers, that is those phrases that help us keep a conversation going, the same way we have conversation killers, which is quite obviously those phrases that kill a conversation. These are phrases that can bring any conversation to a dead end. So while you might not realize it, you could be the one making your conversations dull and drab. That's because you're using some of these conversation killers. Luckily, that's easy to fix. So, if you want to know how to fix your boring conversations and avoid conversation killers, you need to keep watching to find out more about what kills a conversation and how you can put some life back into your communication. This is Michelle and you're watching me on Skillopedia, the real place to learn real communication. Let's go. Killer phrase number 1. Oh, really? So, a friend shares some exciting news that they've been dying to tell you, and how do you respond? If it's with, oh, really? Then chances are that the conversation won't go much further. Your friend will respond with something like, yeah, really, or I know, I couldn't believe it either. The problem is, when you say, oh, really, it signifies disinterest. You're pointing to your unbelief, like you couldn't believe that something so good could happen to your friend. And that kills their interest. So basically, you're not leaving any opportunity for them to give you more detail, and you haven't really shown much interest by saying, oh, really? So now you know that this is one conversation killer that you have to avoid. But what now? Is that all? Well, I'm not leaving you here. I've got more to tell you. It's easy to say, oh really, when you're not sure about what to say or how to respond to someone's news. But it's not hard to break the habit with a little extra effort. So that's not where I leave you. Still, I will also tell you what you should say instead of oh really. Okay, so let's say that your friend has just told you about a scholarship that they have been awarded. So instead of bringing the conversation to a dead end with oh really, you could say something better. Try to say instead, you could ask some open-ended questions like, how did you feel when you found out? Or wow, how did your parents react to this? Okay, you've got more options. If you don't like this option, you could ask about specific details like, what did you have to do for applying? How much of the fee is being waived off? You could also talk about a similar experience that you had and compare it with their experience. And this shows that you're interested in the conversation and you want to take it further. Like you could say, I know when I applied for a scholarship, it took a lot of work, but I'm glad how you got this. You deserve it, girl, or you deserve it, boy. So avoid the conversation killer, oh really, and replace it with the options that I've given you. Killer phrase number 2. Awesome, cool, or great. Well, getting a positive reply is always encouraging, and it's good to give a positive feedback to the person you're speaking to. But one-word replies like awesome and cool don't really add spice to the conversation, but they'd rather make it quite dull and drab. So if you really want to encourage someone, and if you really like what they have to say, why not make it a bit more interesting by adding a bit more effort to express that? Or if you're just saying cool because you're not sure what else to say, why not ask some questions instead? So, because being positive is great, but it's important not to reply everything in a single word. Yes, that turns people off. A single word reply signifies that you're not interested to keep the conversation going. That just doesn't take the conversation anywhere. So let's see what you could say instead of cool, great, or awesome. If someone tells you that they have become a vegetarian, specify why you think what they have said is cool, great, or awesome. Okay, by saying something like, I love that you've decided to go vegetarian because I've always been passionate about animal rights. Though you might be a non-vegetarian yourself. Okay, or if someone tells you that they just saw a new movie, so what do you say? Great? No. You ask for more information, saying something like, cool, I've never heard of that film. Can you tell me more about it? Yes. So this is how you would keep the conversation going using one of these phrases to ask open-ended and detailed questions. Killer phrase number 3. Yeah, I know, but listen. Listen to this. How does it sound? Yeah, I know, but listen what happened with me on my last vacation. It was even more thrilling than your experience. Are you one of those people who just can't help but interrupt during conversations? So you're sure you know exactly what the other person is about to say, so why not finish their sentence for them or butt in with your reply? By saying, yeah, I know that. Okay, I'm being a bit too honest here, but interrupting the person that you're speaking to can be extremely off-putting for them. It's a big turn-off for me, at least for me, when the person I'm talking to wouldn't let me complete what I have to say or simply starts telling about their experience even before I have finished. This doesn't even make me want to carry on the conversation. And I'm sure this is the same experience with anybody who's talking to you. So the key here is, listening is so important to keep the conversation going. When you're talking to someone, don't become so preoccupied with what you're going to say that you ignore what the other person is saying. Yeah, so you must listen to what the other person is saying at that moment. Let's see what we can do about this. If you have a hard time to stop interrupting others, you could try practicing active listening. Now, what is active listening? Well, active listening has 5 interesting stages. The first stage is receiving, which means when you receive or hear what the person is saying and you focus on what they are saying. This is simple, isn't it? You're just receiving. Okay. Second step is understanding. So, as soon as you receive, instead of just quickly telling them what you experienced, you try to understand. You listen to them and you give a more informed reply by thinking about it. And don't be afraid to ask questions. So if you're not sure about what they're saying or you don't understand, it's a great way to show that you're interested if you ask questions. The third is evaluating. Now, evaluating means that you form your opinion. So let's say they talked about a particular news event that's happening. What's your opinion about it? Now that you have your opinion, you respond to them. Okay? But make sure when you respond, the other person has stopped speaking. Do not interrupt. Okay? And try and use good body language like nodding and making eye contact. And finally, the most important thing is to remember. So, when you're having a conversation and in the middle of the conversation, you remember what that person said in the starting of the conversation and you quote their words. Whoa, that is a great way to keep the conversation going. Quote the other person, show them that you're listening to them carefully and you remember what they had just said about 5 minutes back or 10 minutes back. So our ultimate aim is that a conversation should never end in boredom for either of the people involved. So you should follow these tips to keep your conversations interesting, engaging, enjoyable for you and the person that you're speaking to. So these are the tips for a great way to communicate with somebody. And if you think that your conversations have been boring, then now you know that you might have been using some of these killer phrases. Now we have to kill the killer phrases and start using these amazing alternatives that I've shared with you, which you can use to talk about a particular topic in a conversation. So make sure you try these alternatives and use them when you're talking to somebody next time. And do let me know if they help. Write to me in the comments, and of course, please subscribe to our channel and come back for more videos with me, Michelle, on Skillopedia, the place to learn skills for the real world.